Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So I know it has been a long ass time since I've put up a video, and that's just purely been because I've been busy and I just haven't really had the creativity to put out videos, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to upload videos whenever I want. So today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the unsolved disappearance of Frederick Valentish. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I'm sorry if I pronounce it wrong. I'm just gonna pronounce it the way that I think it is. So I mentioned in my first ever video that I want to study criminology. I think I mentioned that, I can't remember, it was a while ago. But I really want to study criminology or something within that branch at uni and do something in my career to do with like mysteries and murders and unsolved cases and that sort of thing. And I love looking into unsolved cases and watching videos on it, so I thought now that I have a YouTube channel, I'm going to make unsolved cases. So without further ado, let's get on with it. So Frederick Valentish went missing on the 21st of October in 1978. He was on a 235-kilometer flight over the Bass Strait heading towards King Island. So he was flying a Cessna 182-litre light aircraft with the registration VH-BSJ. He left the Moorabbin Airport in Victoria at 6:19 p.m. and on this night the visibility was really good and the winds were light, so it was a pretty easy flight that he was meant to go on. And at 6:07 p.m. is when things started to go downhill. So he radioed into Melbourne Air Control and talked to Steve Roby. He said that he was being accompanied by an aircraft that was 300 meters above him, and that his engine started to run quite roughly and not smooth, so kind of all over the place. He reported that the aircraft was moving at very high speeds and that it had come from the east, and then it started to orbit him. So throughout the conversation he said that it come from the east, it was moving at high speeds, and it started to orbit him. He said that he was unable to determine the type of aircraft it was, but he said that it had a shiny metal surface and a green light. And at the start of the call he said that it was illuminated by 4 bright landing lights. Then later on in the call he said that it was had a shiny metal surface and had a green light. So then the call was cut off by metallic scraping sounds, and then all contact was lost and he'd never been heard from ever since. So Frederick Valentish was an Australian pilot. He was 20 years old and he lived at home with his parents and 3 siblings. He also had a girlfriend and their relationship was quite solid. From what I read, it was a very trusting, good relationship. He was described as being a well-adjusted man and he got on really well with his family. He worked as a shop assistant at an army disposal store. He had 150 total flying hours and he held a Class 4 instrument rating, which meant that he could fly at nighttime under certain conditions. So he was not a very good pilot. He was quite inexperienced and he got himself into a bit of trouble sometimes. So he applied to get into the Australian Air Force twice, but was rejected both times due to inadequate education. He held a private pilot license and he was studying to try and get a commercial pilot license, but he was struggling due to a poor achievement record. I read that he failed quite a few times in different things that he had to do. He was involved in multiple flight incidences. So one time he received a warning from staying in a control zone in Sydney. He was actually being considered for prosecution after deliberately flying into a cloud twice. The bit that I was kind of intrigued about is the fact that he was very, very interested in UFOs. He would read articles about them, he would watch documentaries, he would talk about them a lot. His dad described him as being a flying saucer enthusiast, and that he was quite intrigued with UFOs, and he actually talked to his dad about the fact that he feared and believed in UFO abductions while in the air, so he was quite scared of being taken while he was in the air. So I'm going to get into a little bit of evidence now. There really isn't much, considering there was nothing really found. There was nothing that police could kind of go off from where he was, what happened, except for the call that he made. So yeah, the main piece of evidence is that call that was made. I'm going to insert the call into this video. So the only audio that I could find of the call is a YouTube clip that I've seen played over and over in different websites, different YouTube clips. It's the same, all the same clip. So I don't know if this is the actual authentic tape that was made, because he does sound very calm, but that could have just been him, I'm not sure. He just sounds very calm and I don't know if it's the actual authentic one, so you know, I'm going to put it up. I haven't been able to find if it's real or fake, but...
This is Delta Sierra Juliet. Is there any known traffic below 5,000 feet?
No known traffic.
Seems to be a large aircraft below 5,000 feet.
What type of aircraft is it?
I cannot confirm. It's four bright, seems to me like landing lights. The aircraft has just passed over me at least 1,000 feet above. Is there any Air Force aircraft in the vicinity?
No known aircraft in the vicinity.
Seems to be playing some sort of game. He's flying over me. Delta Sierra Juliet, it's not an aircraft, it's...
Can you describe the aircraft?
As it's flying past, it's a long shape. Cannot identify it, it has such speed. It's before me right now, Melbourne.
How large would the object be?
Seems like it's stationary. What it's doing right now is orbiting. The thing is just orbiting on top of me. It's also got a green light and a sort of metallic, like, it's shiny on the outside. It's just vanished. That strange aircraft hovering on top of me again. It's hovering and it's not an aircraft.
So there was a sea and air search for him that covered over 1,000 square miles, and the search efforts ceased on the 25th of October in 1978. So they were searching for him for 4 days and nothing was ever found. So the area that he went missing, in the area that he was flying, there was a place called Cape Otway. This place is going to come in handy later when we're talking about the theories. But so there was a plumber called Roy Manifold, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He took some photos on the day of Valentish's disappearance. So these photos show a fast moving object that was exiting the water near the Cape Otway lighthouse. I don't really believe that it has anything to do with the case, but some people do, so I thought I'd just throw that in there. There were also a lot of late reports of a UFO being seen over this part of Australia on that night. So a lot of people reported seeing a very fast moving green light, which is what a lot of people think is what took him, because he said on the radio call that there was a green light on the UFO or whatever happened to him, that thing that he saw, and then a lot of people said that they saw a fast moving green light. So two and two together, a lot of ufologists and people that believe in aliens think that that's what happened. So just a month after his disappearance, another pilot of a Cessna aircraft was flying over the water and saw what looked like a submerged aircraft. On the other flyby, he was unable to confirm the observation that he made. He couldn't see it again, or something happened, but he couldn't confirm that he definitely saw it. So it could have been like maybe the reflection of his aircraft, considering it was a similar plane. So 5 years later, an engine cowl flap, don't know what that is, it was found washed up on Flinders Island. So the Bureau of Air Safety Investigations said that the part has been identified as come from a Cessna 182 aircraft between a certain range of serial numbers. Yeah, this plane part they found was within a certain range of airplanes. Could have been 50, could have been 1,000 airplanes. But his airplane was one of those in that range, if that makes sense. So it could have been his airplane. So yeah, that's all the evidence that was found. Not much to go off, just a lot of word of mouth of what people said. So let's get into some theories. So obviously the most common kind of one that people like to think is that a UFO either abducted him in his aircraft or destroyed him in his aircraft. For whatever reason, that's what happened. So the reason why ufologists and people that believe in aliens and that sort of thing thought that this is what happened is because of the fact that he couldn't identify what the aircraft was. The fact that it was moving at a very fast rate. He said in his recording that it was moving very, very fast. The fact that he said that there was a green light and that people reported seeing a fast moving green light, and they also reported that the thing was in a very steep dive at the time of them seeing it, so it was quite like fast and steep going downwards. Maybe that's when it took him, I'm not sure. I believe in aliens. I believe in the fact that we're not the only people out there, but I don't know if I believe that that's what happened to him, only because he was so interested in UFOs and so like intrigued in them. I just think that it's too much of a coincidence that the fact that he was so into this sort of thing and disappearing on a flight, and then he did. So a lot of officials from the Department of Transport said that Valentish may have become disorientated while flying upside down, and then saw his own lights in the water, thinking that it was something else, or he saw the lights of a nearby island while he was disoriented. I don't really believe this theory because, like, if he became disorientated while flying upside down, why would he, like, then call into air traffic control saying that it was still with him? Because, like, I don't think you would be that confused if you're a pilot. I mean, I know that he was a bad pilot, but I don't think he would be, like, that disorientated that he called up air traffic control and said that the thing was orbiting him and still staying around him. This theory doesn't really back up what he said. Doesn't really, like, prove anything. It's just kind of a theory that makes some sense. So another thing I just want to throw in, so this kind of goes with a lot of theories that he didn't see a UFO. This kind of proves that it wasn't. So at the very start of his call, he said that this thing was illuminated by 4 landing lights, little diamond in 1, 2, 3, 4 lights. So a lot of people believe that the 4 lights he saw were Venus, which was very, very bright at the time of his disappearance, Mars, Mercury, the very bright star Antares. So these 4 lights make the diamond shape that he said he saw, which kind of can create the illusion of a unknown aircraft. So the next theory is the fact that Valentish staged his own disappearance. I know this sounds kind of crazy, but it does make quite a bit of sense. So the reason why people think that he staged his own disappearance is the fact that he was so interested in UFOs, so interested in being taken by them, so just infatuated with them. So a lot of people believe that he staged it because he wanted to experience this sort of thing. He wanted to know what it's like to be taken. I'm not sure. I feel like this does make a little bit of sense considering he was so into it, but then again, like, he did have a really good life and I don't know why he would leave it behind. The evidence to back up this theory is the fact that a 30 to 45 minute flight away from where he was flying was Cape Otway. Like I said before, the light tower where the plumber took the photos was Cape Otway. So the aeroplane still had 800 kilometers left in its tank. It could still fly that much. So people said that he flew to Cape Otway and he disappeared. So the reason why this does make sense is because at no time throughout his flight was he ever plotted on a radar. So Melbourne police received reports of a light aircraft making a very mysterious landing at the exact same time that Valentish disappeared. So this could have been him flying down into Cape Otway, having a good spot to land, and the fact that he wasn't tracked on a radar, no one can see where he went, so he could well have staged his own disappearance. This I do believe more than a UFO theory, just because he was so interested in UFOs. So the next theory I think makes the most amount of sense because everything kind of makes sense. Everything has a reason for it. So this theory was thought of by an astronomer and retired US Air Force pilot, James McHarr, not sure how to pronounce it, that Valentish was deceived by a tilted horizon. So this is when the sun is setting and parts of the horizon are lit up and others are darker, so it kind of goes light to dark. And this, like, transition and imbalance of light creates the illusion that the horizon is tilted. So a lot of inexperienced pilots do run into trouble due to tilted horizons, and as mentioned before, he was not a very good pilot and he was quite inexperienced. So what pilots do when they don't know of tilted horizons, or they don't really know the difference between tilted horizon and the sun setting or whatever, is they try to compensate for the fact the horizon is tilted. They think they're on an angle, so they compensate and move their aircraft, and then obviously their aircraft is then imbalanced and then issues start to happen. So because he attempted to compensate, it would have put his aircraft into a downwards spiral. This is called a graveyard spiral. You've probably seen it in movies where, like, airplanes just go down and down and down faster and faster into the ground. So while he was in spinning, he would have mistook it for an orbiting of an aircraft. He would have thought that an aircraft was around him because he was spinning. The G-force of the tightening spiral would decrease the fuel flow, so then it would create a rough idling, so it would, as Valentish described, his engine was running badly. So this theory, combined with the fact that there was the 4 lights in the sky, the 4 stars, and that he could have seen a far off lights, does make sense. So that is pretty much the entire case of the Valentish disappearance. I probably did leave some things out. If I did, so be it. That's the basis of the case. If you want to look into it more, there's a lot of good websites on it, a lot of good videos. It's quite an interesting case, and yeah, I hope it gets solved because it's seriously so interesting to me. But up until this date, the case of Frederick Valentish is still unsolved. So that was my entire video on an unsolved disappearance, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. Please don't be afraid to hit that big red subscribe button. It really does mean a lot when I see I get new subscribers. Also, comment down below any other unsolved mysteries you want me to do. I'm open to suggestions. I will see you guys in the next one.